Happy Tuesday, everybody.
Hi.
I'm Patty.
I'm Carrie.
And we are StudioR12 Stencils. And today we have a great video for you. It is a very requested video, and I'm excited to give you all kinds of information.
Yeah. Today I think...
Teaser alert, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is definitely one that our stencil fans ask us about all the time.
Yeah.
And when our stencil fans ask us questions, we really try to make sure that if one person has a question, there's probably others. And we learned that when we asked, what questions do you have? So if you are on any platforms online, you're probably going to find us. We have our StudioR12.com website where we have thousands of products, including stencils, surfaces, embellishments, and brushes, tools, all of the things that you need to paint your project. You can also find us on YouTube, which is where you're probably watching us. And on Tuesdays, we release videos in the evenings where we chat, we answer questions, and teach lessons. And it's more of a fun, interactive format. And then on Saturdays, we release a video with a single artist showing you either a technique or how to paint a project, something seasonal to get you inspired. So make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm going to date ourselves and say that it is October 2024, and we are very close to hitting our 20,000 subscribers. Yay. And we are super excited about that. And thank you for tuning in and checking us out. You can also find us on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, and all the fun places. On Facebook, we are very active. We post several times a day. We share funny photos, we share product information, we share new products, we share videos, and that's also what you're going to find in our newsletter on StudioR12.com. When you go to our website, you will get a big spinny wheel pop up, and if you have not subscribed, you can enter your email address and get a discount for your first order. There's also a tab at the top of the page that says newsletter, and that's where we release things most, and then we keep some things from social, and then we also post things on social that we keep from the newsletter. So we like to just keep everybody on their toes.
Stay tuned. Absolutely. All right, today, as per our stencil fans' requests, we are going to cover the brushes that we carry and recommend on our website. So if it's on the website, it has been vetted by me. I have been painting for 35 years. I'm definitely a professional artist, painter person, and so I definitely know my brushes. Okay, so I know what I don't want, I know what I do want, and everything's been curated, everything is there. We've got a mix mash of different brands, so we don't tend to stress the brands because I am not brand loyal to the degree that I will recommend a line of brushes because they're in that brand if I don't believe in them. And every brush company has levels of quality. And if you are in a craft store, generally speaking, unfortunately, the craft stores tend to bring on brushes that have a good value for them. So they've got high monetization, and they tend not to be, like, they're part of a planogram. They get shipped to the company because of money, like, I want this money, not that money kind of thing. And you tend not to always get the most quality. But then you don't necessarily need a $35 liner brush for everyday painting. So, like, there's both sides of that. And so somewhere in the middle is where I have landed. It needs to work. Some of them are super cheap, and some of them can be a little bit more expensive, but mostly they're medium level. So here today, I'm going to show you what they do, why they do it, and why I recommend them. So shall we get started?
We shall.
Okay, here we go. All right, so I've just got a blank board. I'm going to put out some dark purple, and we're just going to kind of go through the brushes as if I was painting a project. So I'm not really going to paint like a project. I'm just going to show you what they're for. We're going to start with number one, the foam brush. Foam brush is an excellent brush for base coating your project, and you'll use it dry, generally speaking. You could also varnish your project with them, but you want to make sure that you have no crusty edges if you're going to varnish, because that tends to leave crusty edge marks. So you want to take care to clean it right away after you're done using it. Otherwise, the paint will dry around the edge, and then you won't have a good brush. These can last for years, so they're super affordable. super easy. And ours, the ones that, dribble, dribble, our brushes are super dense. So they actually, so see when I push down, it doesn't fold the entire brush down like that. I can make it happen. But so then we'll just base coat. Nice, big, long, smooth strokes. I'm going to get rid of that little drippy line. Pick it up, base coat. And then as I get near my edge, I'm going to just tap, tap, tap at the edge so I don't dribble all the way over the edge. And then smooth it out. So the foam brush can be used for your mediums. You could use it to lay down water. You can use it for varnishing. And then when you clean it, you don't want to use soap because it is a foam brush. And if it has soap in it, then you can make it sudsy. All right, so let me just finish basing this.
And when we're talking about the foam brush, we're talking about if it gets crusty. That is one of my favorite brushes to use when we are antiquing and we're trying to add a little country or rustic vibe to our project. When one gets yucky, then the paint does not seep into it as well. And so it sits on it, and then you can drag it more, creating a streak or a faux wood grain texture.
Yeah, that's a good point. I did stop basing right here because I wanted to bring out a oval glaze. The oval glaze brush is an excellent brush for tons of techniques, but it can also be used for base coating your project. So I can just pick up paint, dry brush, and I can base coat. It's a slower base coat than, say, if you used a foam brush. I would use a foam brush more than I would use this these days. In the olden days when I used to be painting, I would always use my oval glaze, and it does a fine job. It just isn't the most economical of movement and time. So then after you use your oval glaze for basing something, what I love to use my oval glaze for is to slip slap. So I'm going to go ahead and get my project wet. So I'm going to pick up some purple. Finish this puppy up so it doesn't distract anybody. It's nothing like a partially backgrounded thing to be like, what's going on? Okay, so I'm going to get it wet all over. See how quickly the foam brush goes at basing. This is my preferred method. However, this is good in a pinch. Okay, so now I'm going to take a lighter color. I'm going to pick up, with a wet background, I'm going to pick up my lighter color. And then this brush is cut, I should have showed you, I think, do I have one laying over here? I do. This is cut where it tapers this way and tapers this way, and it also is oval this way. And because of that taper, it makes a really good blend. So we're going to go on here. I'm going to put it down in the middle. And see this wispiness that's happening right there? That is because this brush is tapered at that end. Okay, that is how that works. So then this is called slip slapping, where you just make this X movement and you just sweep along. And I'm using a fairly firm pressure. I can pick up more and go in and deepen. I can also wipe off to feather it out. Okay, so you can feather that all out. I could also pick up a dark color, and I can go into a dark color at the edges. Just gonna wipe my brush off. Pick up the dark. My edges are looking a little dry, so I could give a mist of some water. And so I can go to my edge. I really want my color to be wet, because if my color is wet, then the two colors will blend and make a new color, which makes it a nicer transition. Okay, so then that's how you would use a darker color. So that's the slip slap technique. The oval glaze, I actually keep one of these brushes, the biggest size one, at my house in my kitchen junk drawer. And I use it for doing all of my trim when I'm painting something in the house. If I'm going to paint a piece of furniture, I'll use it for the smaller pieces. If I'm painting a wall, I'll use it to cut in. Because of this taper, it gets, can you see how nice and sharp that is? The brushes that you buy from the store are so thick, you really have to know how to angle the brush to get the cut. And because I've just been trained on this brush for so long, it's very comfortable for me. So, and then also you can make flowers and different things like that. So once you get into sizes, don't have the smallest size here. Once you get into sizes, I'm going to magically flip this over and we're going to go onto that side of the project and show you what you can do. Maybe I'll use black. If I use this dry and I just pick up some black, then I can do a technique called dry brushing. I'm going to flick this off on a paper towel, and I can take this and make a shading effect on my lettering. So I can just drag some of that down and see how that fades. That is dry brushing. And so the idea is not necessarily that my brush is dry, that my paint is dry, but that the texture looks dry. So even though my brush is wet with paint and it's fully loaded, because I'm using light pressure and the brush is cut correctly, then that makes it give the appearance of that dry look. And it is a great technique if you've ever struggled with shading something or making something look deeper or have depth, then dry brushing technique is very approachable. Once you get it, you've got it, and you can use it on any kind of project. Okay, so let me get this cleaned up. I also always clean my brushes after I use them. I don't let them sit in water. So if you've got a nice brush, I do let my dome brushes sit in water, but I do not let the Taklon, these golden brushes, sit in water because they will get ruined. Okay, let's go into a Duster Stippler.
Can we, before we move on, since we already have the ovals out, can we talk about the ovals and what the difference is?
We can. I can go back to that too. Yeah. I'm trying to decide. Okay, let's do it. Let's do it that way. So oval glaze. Move this guy. Hey, purple transfer. Okay, so oval glaze is this guy right here, right? And you notice that he's got a taper, but it's just a taper. It's not like on this guy, you can see a very marked difference in the shave of this compared to this. These guys, let me get my guys put back into their order. These oval glaze, they do not make a very good flower stroke or a stroke of any kind. And then this guy is one of the oval glazes. So you can take this and do it on this side.
So the one that Patty originally used was the one with the gold handle, and the one that she is using now is the one with the clear handle, which is called our Clearly Amazing.
Clearly Amazing, yeah. And so there's definitely a difference in the two of them. And so with this guy, if I tried to do dry brushing, I could make it happen, but it would be a more struggle because a lot of the bristles will hit the surface at the same time. So with this guy, though, I can make a really pretty little leaf stroke or a petal stroke or something like that. With the other one, I would struggle to do that because of the taper. The taper is the key and the taper is the gold, but it is, and I got the same result. But it is harder to do. You have to kind of know what you're doing. And so always stack your cards in your favor. Okay, so then I wash it. We have a whole video on how to wash your brushes. We go over all the different kinds of brushes. You definitely want to know how to wash your brushes because there's nothing like ruining a set of $25 brushes or something like that and not having your brushes when you need them. And we do have one more. We have a Flower Filbert. The Flower Filbert brush is even more stroke-like to do like brush strokes. And so the Flower Filbert is cut so that it has not really got any kind of taper. It is cut in an oval. Any filbert is cut in an oval tip. I don't know why they call it a filbert, but they're cut in that oval tip. And then, fun fact, Steve figured out for us, the reason a brush is called a number 8 or a number 6 is because it's a metric system of measurement, and the brush is actually going to be 8 millimeters. So you can choose your brushes by what size millimeters you want. So when you're looking for a brush and you know you need something tiny, you'll know that if it's a number 2, that's automatically going to be tiny, not necessarily that it's just the second in the series. I thought it was the second in the series. So
yeah, and so on our website, our brushes are primarily listed. They're either a 6, 8, 10, or they're done by 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch. So they're all measurements, but it is
knowing which is which.
Yes.
Yeah, super good to know. So hippie noodle blown. Okay, so then the Flower Filbert is definitely one where you can make a really pretty stroke. And then another thing that I like to do with it, if I'm making like a hydrangea, so if I can kind of do a little slip slap and then do little petals, I'll pretend like the black is going to be a little petal, so I can just get little tiny flower petals out of that. If I put my glasses on my nose, that would probably help. Okay, but so the Flower Filbert is more for making little flower petals, and then you need to have them. This size brush I would use for a flower that was like that size, so like 4 inches. And then the tinier ones I would use for something that's more this size. But they're really nice brushes to have when you need to make good strokes. Okay, so once again, always clean your brush after you're done. I'm going to come back over here to this side, and I'm going to talk about our Duster Stippler. Every now and again, these lose some little hairs. Don't worry about it. Brush them off when it's dry. That is just I'm losing my hairs too. Par for the course with any kind of brush. They put the ferrule around, they dip the bristles in the glue, then they stuff it into the ferrule, and there's always going to be a hair or two that just doesn't get the glue. So just expect that. You can use this brush wet or dry. The Duster Stippler is really good for stippling. So I like to use it when I need snow or texture or highlights, that kind of thing. So when I'm coming over here, I would stipple off, just to kind of get it blend into my brush. Blot off, time for a new blotter. And then just kind of tap it to make sure you don't leave like a big bullseye right there. You can do a lot with pressure, so you can control a lot with pressure. So if I want it to be strong, bonk, I can make it be strong, right? Or if I want it to be light, I can totally get two completely opposite effects this way. If I make this mistake, I could wipe my brush off, go back into my purple, and stipple over that to create a blended look. And then with this, if I was making snow or whatever effect, I would just go for nice and even application. When I'm going for even application, I tend not to go in a row, because that's going to leave a really obvious pattern. And so I'm going to have a same overlap. I'm going to have a same like row, and it's going to look like you have a pattern. So I tend to be a little bit more random, or I go in a circle. And so I build it out from the middle. And the middle was almost always going to be your strongest highlight. So if I go back over that area, I can get that highlight in there. And we've got some really neat examples of, like, there's a snowman, tall porch sign that is super cute, and he's got all kinds of texture. You can also use a sea sponge, but with sea sponges, it's harder to get this like pebbly look. So if I was painting sand, or even you can use these kind of to do, let me get some more paint, to do like a little bit of a grass effect. So if you had a tree, so pretend like this is my tree, I could put, I could go in there with then my Flower Filbert and or one of my other filberts and make little leaves and, you know, get a whole like leafed out effect. So that is the Duster Stippler. And the Duster Stippler's bristle, I'm going to leave it in the water. Okay, so next we are going to talk about stencil brushes. I'm going to wipe this off because I do think it's very distracting. Make sure that you guys are asking us any questions that you have. If anything wasn't clear, we want you to let us know. We learn from what you want to know about, and we make our whole presence on YouTube to be what you ask us to show you. So we care deeply about what you want to know. All right, so now we'll go into our dome brushes. Okay, so we all know that we love our purple dome brushes. And I did not grab one of the green dome brushes. The difference between these two brushes, this is more affordable. It is well made. It works fine, and it's a good brush. But the difference is this one has like slightly longer bristles for the size that this is and the size that this is. They're almost the same length. This is a little bit more dense, so when I hit down here, I have not quite as much move. With this one, I can get movement, and I like the control of the purple. But if it was a budgetary problem and I couldn't paint my stencils without it, I would totally use the green ones too. I don't have a dog in this fight as far as that goes. And then the other brushes that we carry that are in the dome families, and notice that everything with stenciling is dome. And the reason for that is the dome shape of it is cut so that, in this one is a flat dome, but the cut shape of this is so that you don't have bristles pushing underneath your stencils. If you have a flat stippling brush, it tends to kick right underneath your stencil, and I think that's why people have struggled with stenciling for years and years. I think that's the most common, but it bleeds under, and it's because the cut of something like this pushes, and you can see it just automatically just kicks out. It can't help itself. So we do not ever use a flat stippling brush. Okay, so now we'll go back and let me show you the large jumbo size one is amazing. So put our stencil down and pick up some color. Always offload when you are stenciling. And generally speaking, I always tape. This paint is still wet. My surface is wet. I'm not sure my tape is going to hold, but we'll pretend like it's going to. Okay, so you can do two things when you're going to stipple. You can swirl. Okay, so that covers. What I like about swirling is it's not such a hard job. And then I really don't love the texture that stippling gives. I prefer the smooth of the swirling. Okay, so that is how you would do that. Neat thing that you can do also is, let me pick up some paint. I'll offload. So you can ombre or shade or highlight. So let's pretend like our bat is going to be 3 colors. So I can take the middle and I can highlight, and by swirling I can use really light pressure and just barely pull that color out. Now I'll go over into my black one more time because I'm neutralizing that color. And then I can go onto the tips of the bat and pull it into that purple area. And so now I've got this ombre looking little bat where you can see this color was where I started. I faded it over here. I faded that out. This doesn't look pretty, but you can imagine the possibilities if you needed a fade. If you ever look at something and you're like, oh, how'd they get that fade? That's how. You're going to use a dome brush appropriately sized, and then you're going to use scant paint, wipe it all off, and then feather it in with light pressure, and you'll have it. Okay. Now we're coming into our flats and our angles and flats. Let me get. Okay, so I've got a feathering brush, I've got an angle shader, I've got a flat brush. A lot of these, don't worry about the color of the handle. They make different lines of brushes for different people. They have brushes that they market specifically to watercolor people. They have brushes that they market specifically to oil painters, acrylic painters, all of that kind of stuff. So when you are looking at brushes in the store, you're not necessarily going to get, you might see this brush and so you might see this brush with a clear handle. You might see this brush with a gold handle. It's just going to depend on what line they want to put those brushes into. A lot of times the heads are the same. So don't worry about that. A flat brush is not tapered at all. It just ends abruptly, and it ends on a flat edge. Okay, so what's neat about a flat brush, I'm going to get it wet. I'm wetting it because most of the things I'm going to do with a flat brush I'm going to want it to flow off of my bristles. And if I have a dry brush, then it's going to sit exactly where I put it. And I don't always want that to be the case with a flat brush. Okay, so flat brush. Number one thing that you can do with the flat brush is you can base coat. So you can take your flat brush and you can do exactly what this looks like, a house painting brush, right? One thing that you do want to notice, as soon as I started base coating with this brush, it started pushing my paint up the middle of the bristles. And so as it approaches that ferrule, the thing that will ruin your flat brush, and I don't know that I have any out here that are yucky, the thing that will ruin your flat brush is if you let paint get dry right down there at the base, because it makes a tunnel or a hole in the middle. It'll look like an oval donut with a nice hole straight in the middle of these bristles because of that dried paint. So you always want to make sure that you spend time cleaning these flat brushes. I'm going to clean that out because I've talked it dry. When you're selecting sizes for flat brushes specifically, a lot of these things are forgiving and you can use a bunch of, small, medium, and large. If I'm trying to do something controlled with my flat brush, I'll go smaller than I think I need to. If I need precision, I'm going to go exactly the size that I think I need to. And then if I'm doing a bigger project, I'm just going to get the biggest one that I can find. Okay, the other thing that you can do with a flat brush, I'm going to flatten my paint in my brush. So you load it by flattening it out. If you notice with the ovals, I slip-slapped a little bit, so I just kind of picked up some paint. The flat brush needs to be loaded flat. Otherwise, if I do it incorrectly, I'll do it incorrectly first. I'll just pick up some paint. If I'm trying to do anything controlled, then I immediately get these channels on either side. So I get this little raised edge because the paint has pushed itself over to that edge, and that is not the effect I'm after. So I'm going to wipe that off, and then I will load the brush. And then I'm just going to make sure that I don't have a lot of paint in there. I could wipe it off or whatever. And then notice my posture. If I'm using another shape brush, I might have a relaxed posture, relaxed, that kind of thing. If I'm in the flat brush, I need to be upright. Okay, and now I've took my paint off my brush. So if I want that chisel, I've got to have it straight up and down, period. Okay, so you need to make sure that you are straight. And if I want to go at an angle, I can change the entire look of everything that I've got. Need more paint. I can totally change this from a wide brush to an angle of any size. So that's a neat thing to know about using a flat brush, because you can change the look and the effect. If I was making a candy cane, the other thing that you can do with flats as well is you can go and make little strokes with them. So I can totally make this into a big old fat candy cane stripey brush. So that is a way to make stripes, to make strokes, to do all that kind of thing. So you can slide your brush any way you want it. So you can do straight, you can curve, you can do all that stuff. What it doesn't do well, if you want to like say make a circle, you wouldn't necessarily do one of these numbers. Okay, you could do it, but it would be inefficient. Time for more paint. If I wanted to base coat a circle, then what I would do is I would start at the top and I would slide my brush along and bring it to like a C, like the letter C, and I would base coat it that way. And then I probably would turn my piece, slide it along, get it a little bit more round, smooth it out in the middle. When you're base coating with a flat, you want to brush your paint on, and then you want to make sure you smooth it. So if I had, let's pretend, this is our Ghost Rider. So if I had a box that I wanted to paint, I would start painting it here, not on top of my edge. Because if I start right on top of my edge, then I'm going to have that little pushed out paint right there. The strength of my paint is going to be in the middle if I start in the middle instead of at the edge. And then after I brush a couple of strokes, I'll come to the edge and I'll just pick that up and then continue on. So you just make sure that you don't start right next to where you want to be, okay? And so then that would argue for you to have a slightly smaller brush. If this box was the same exact size as this, I need to make sure that my paint is loaded correctly on my brush, and then maybe I've stroked over here a couple of times and then go to my project and make it exactly the size. So you can do it, you have to know how to control it, okay? So that's what this video is all about, is telling you how you do the control-y pants things. Another technique that I use flat brushes for, and this goes for the angle brother cousin of the flat brush, is to shade. Okay, so if I'm shading, this is a more advanced technique. This is something that took me 2 years to learn how to do. I had books that told me exactly how to do it, and I could not for the life of me figure that out. So this is a more advanced technique. But I didn't have teachers, and there were no videos at the time either. So you can rewatch this until the cows come home and get it. So with this, I've got enough paint or enough water on my brush. So I go into the water, I load it, I tap on the paper towel until I see the top not shiny again. Or you could put just enough so that you have a water on your finger that doesn't roll off. Okay, so those are two ways that you can do it. Water disappears and becomes like not shiny, or you can touch your finger and you can feel just enough water on there. You corner load. So that is what corner loading looks like. You don't bring it further past the middle. You don't want that. And then you go onto your palette and you push in the same spot. Do not walk around, because you'll lose your paint and you won't have any paint left on your brush to do this technique with. If you start seeing your color go all the way across, like I have a little bit of color that has walked into that, you can go blot the very corner of it, and that usually will take care of that problem. And so then I can come over here and I can shade or highlight. And so I just drag the brush along, and then that color will float in the water that's left on the clean side, and that is called floating, and it is used for shading and highlighting. Okay, next, in our flat family, we have angle brushes, okay? So I'm gonna go over here. An angle shader is exactly like a flat. It is just cut at an angle. So it is exactly the same techniques. You can use it in all the same ways that I showed you to do the flat brush. So I can angle it. So now this one I'm going to hold at its angle. So instead of straight up, if I tried to do this, it would make it like a giant mess. So you don't want it just on its toe, right? So I'll hold it at this angle, and this one is a little beat up. And so if you notice, Steve, I don't know if you can get this or not, you see that little hole right there in the middle of this brush? That is exactly, this means this brush has been left dirty, and that means that it is not going to make controlled. Look at how chiselly these strokes are. That's a brush in really good control, good condition. And this one is not so much. Okay, so, but it still base coats. It just doesn't make a really good chiseled edged effect. Trying to use all my right words and I'm fumbling all over the place. Let's do one of these things. Okay, so something that you can do with an angle brush that you can't do very well with flat is you can make you can kind of give yourself these little strokes and then you can build like a rose out of it. So if this was in the right colors, you would see that it was effectively making a rose shape. You can do that because of the angle of the brush, and that is a really good technique to know about. Anytime you want to just press and pull, it makes this nice little ear effect. It doesn't do a good leaf necessarily, but it does make a good petal. So that is a really neat superpower trick for an angle shader. Even though I'm cleaning my brush out in the water, I will still go to the sink and I will still use running water. I will still clean everything out of my brush. But so always know that you have to clean it out right away, but then know that you still need to follow up with a good cleaning. Okay, and then we have our feather brush. Feather brush is flat. The feather brush is different kind of bristle. It is not a smooth kind of bristle, so it's not going to make a chisel effect. The feather brush is really good for doing some texture. So we'll do a little texture. I'm going to do it dry. Just load some paint, and then I will flick off on my paper towel anytime I want texture. Dome brush makes texture. Which other brushes do we have out? The Stippler, the Duster Stippler makes texture. Anything with a bristly kind of effect makes texture. So you want to make sure that you have it blotted off a little bit so that you get the drag of the brush, if that makes sense. Okay, so now this way, I can totally just make any kind of texture that I want. If I was using this in real time, I could go on, let's pretend. Maybe I want to do some texture down the middle of my lettering. The dry brush would be my favorite to do this. And so this is giving me like a chiselly kind of cut texture because I've got it at its angle. Okay, so not my favorite brush to use for this, but if I was, say, maybe I wanted to bring some texture at my edges, then I can start at the edge and then just drag in texture. This is really inappropriate color choices for this teal, the purple. Anyway, the texture brush, the feather brush, we used it for the cowhide background, is one of the videos I'm sure of that you can find. And it's a really good video for a technique that you would never believe you could get out of a brush. That was an amazing. This also is really good at pushing paint around. It allows you to shove paint wherever you're going to want it. It allows you to blend colors. Because it's square though, it won't do like a smooth, this like slip-slappy blend like I did here. It won't do that very well because of the squareness. So use oval things when you want a really smooth blend. Use square things when you want to make a statement and a punch. Okay, and I think we did it, Carrie.
So since we did the start to finish,
yeah,
what's your favorite brush to varnish with?
Well, start to finish, that's a good question. I love the oval glaze for varnishing because this is kind of a neat thing that I did not talk about. So to varnish, we'll do it where we can see it. When you're varnishing, you want a large size thing to varnish with. And this brush, if I split it up, let me get some color. It's the paint is wanting to make the brush move and the water is not doing the same thing for me. So if I splay this brush out, it gets really big And then honestly, they make a really cool thing that you can make like flowers out of this. It's really neat effect. I've seen them like multi-load one of these and then make all these like really pretty like flowers. But because this gets so nice and big and it has that tapered end, that is my favorite varnishing brush. But really, it's not in this video, but man, do I love to varnish with a sponge. So if you wet your sponge in clean water and then really wring it out and then pick up your varnish, it goes really fast. And it would take me, 3 or 4 minutes to varnish something with this. And it would take me 30 seconds or 15 seconds to get the whole board varnished with this. And because this is a thinner varnish applicator, I would do a couple of coats more than I would with just a brush.
And we have a whole video on several different ways that you can use sponges on your projects.
All right, so make sure that you are asking us questions. We thrive on your questions. And then we'll see you on the next video. Make sure you subscribe and ring the bell.